Denise forward to give her testimony.
Good morning. I never thought I'd be standing in front of a congregation in shorts and water shoes, but it's all good. I know we'd like to keep it brief. The only way I know how to tell this, my testimony, is throughout my life. I was born in the 60s to very young parents, my father being a drug addict, my mom being just not knowing how to be a mom. They told me I was Catholic. All my life I was told, you're once a Catholic, always a Catholic. But we never practiced anything. We never prayed. We never talked about Jesus. It was just, you're a Catholic. So as time goes on, there's no church, there's no talk of God. We had a statue of the Virgin Mary on a dash of our car that was part of our religion, I guess. And I used to watch my grandma do a rosary, and it was in another language, and it scared the heck out of me. I thought she was in a trance, and I just didn't know what that was all about. So that's my early taste of religion and God. It's just it was non-existent. I think I told you, yes, my dad was a drug addict. So my grandma decided to move us to the UP to get away from all the nonsense in Detroit. But if you've ever had an experience with a drug addict or an alcoholic, changing locations isn't the answer, and it doesn't work. So he continued in his thing, and my mom continued in being just a bitter person, critical. We decided to move back down to Lower Michigan, and we actually moved next door to a church, but we didn't go. And I remember my mom saying, I will never force my children to go to church and so on. But you know what? I wanted to go. Those kids there looked like they were having fun. So my dad ends up leaving my mother pregnant with 5 kids. And he ran away with the 17-year-old that the whole town knew about, and it was very humiliating. And somewhere in that, my mom decided she needed God back. So she started attending that church, and she made us attend it because I should say she made my brothers. I really wanted to go. I was about 12 or 13 at that time, and I joined a youth group, and to tell you the truth, we had a lot of fun. Ended up going to a Bible camp, and that's where I got saved. Everybody was always talking about getting saved and going to heaven, and I just didn't know what that meant and how do you do that. And we do fun things like Bible drills, and I was really smart at that. I could look them up and say them so fast, and I thought, well, this is cool. I'm good at this. But back to the being saved part. I think it was about 4 of us girls in our cabin that one night, and our counselor decided that we should all get saved because we weren't. And she told us to say a prayer and to give our life to God, and that was it. So we did it. So I left that camp thinking, I'm saved. I'm going to heaven. This is cool. But not knowing nothing about what Jesus did for me, not knowing about the forgiveness. And just didn't learn all that. So eventually we moved away from there, and we moved into a little town, and it was hard for me. All of a sudden there was no more church in our life, and to tell you the truth, I got in with the wrong crowd. I started hanging around older people. I started getting attention from older men, and I liked that because my dad had abandoned me, and my mom I didn't feel love from her. It just wasn't there. So, yeah, teenage years, seeking love, relationship to relationship. All of a sudden, enters drugs, alcohol, and you know what? I end up just like my dad. At 14, I'm pretty well into that scene, and I'm babysitting for my brothers and sister. Basically, I became a grown-up at 14 because my teenage years were ripped away. There was no going to games. There was no dances. There was just hanging out with older people late at night and getting into all kinds of trouble, and resenting the fact that I had to stay home and cook and clean for 4 kids and take care of them and try to teach them and raise them. My mom had no interest in doing that. So yeah, I rebelled. I ran away, and I came back. It's hard to be on your own. So finally we move again, and that's when I met my first husband and had my 2 daughters. Still seeking love in all the wrong places, still numbing out pain and everything with drugs and alcohol. But, I was functioning. I had a good job. My husband had a good job, and we thought we were doing pretty good. No God, no religion, no church. My husband carried a Bible in his van on the dash. I still, to this day, don't know why, but that was about the stint of his religion. That ended in divorce, of course. That was just two young people not knowing what they're doing. And there was some abuse in there. And, even with my daughters, beautiful daughters, I just never felt happy. I always felt like something's not right, something's missing. After that divorce, I married another man, and this time I insisted on getting married in the church. The first marriage was by the court. So we planned a big wedding, and we went and talked to the priest at a Lutheran church, and I come to find out he thought I was too far gone and too dirty for his church. I'm a divorced woman. I didn't have the right reasons for divorcing, so he told me flat out I wasn't good enough to get married there. So that kind of hurt. And that's where my future in-laws had gone to church, so that's why I thought of there. There's one more church in that little town, and it was a Baptist church. And in that town, everybody either belonged to one of the other churches, so we gotta start doing this. So we took the classes at the Baptist church, and we were married in the church. Darn it, I married another one. He was behind the scenes dealing a lot of drugs that I didn't know about. And I found out, and one day I asked him, I said, it's either the children and I or the drugs. And he told me he's only going to sell the drugs for a couple more years, and then our house will be paid off and so on. Well, that didn't work for me. I didn't want that kind of life. I didn't want to lose my children. So I basically had a nervous breakdown at that time, and I did lose my children. I gave them to their dad to take care of. I just couldn't do it. And once again, I think I should back up. During that marriage, we did become members of that church, and I did dive into it, but I was still never taught the love and forgiveness of Jesus Christ. They told me I was going to be punished, and he was wrathful, and how could I do these things if I loved him? And boy, I just had the wrong view again, that I was just too dirty to be a Christian. It wasn't going to be my life. So yeah, that ended in divorce and my breakdown, and that's when I really walked away from God. I just, relationship after relationship, trauma, lots of loss in my life, and one relationship was very, very violent, and I left Michigan, and I went to Delaware where my oldest daughter is living, and same thing. I was just the same person, but in a different city. I was angry, I was bitter. I was no longer a functioning alcoholic and drug addict. I couldn't function anymore. So I went into a rehab, and that's where I met my husband. We were both lost, losers, just nothing good going on in her life. And we decided to get together after that. And that was about 11 years ago. And something kept drawing us to church. We talked and talked, and we decided we wanted to go to church. And mind you, at this time, we are living amongst filth, prostitution, drugs, just a filthy environment. Motel. We were living in a motel because Pete had gotten hit by a car while we were intoxicated, and he was in a wheelchair and could no longer live in his apartment because it was 2 stories up. So we became motel livers, which is just basically a good name for homeless. It's the only reason we were there and had the roof is because we had some money, and that was the only thing. But they had a little Nazarene church there next door to the motel, and we started going. And it was a small congregation, but several women kind of adopted me and prayed for me and took me to Bible study. And I just really started getting into it. But things happened. The money ran out. We didn't quit the drugs. It just wasn't that easy. We didn't quit the alcohol. And we did end up on the streets of a terrible city. I think it ranks second in homicide. Very dangerous city, crime-ridden. And we were destitute. No religion, no nothing. No praying. I couldn't even pray at that time anymore because I was just so broken and so worn out from living my life of just misery. I was always miserable. So I thought, all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe it was God speaking to me in my despair, and he said, you know what, come back to Michigan. Go to Michigan. So I asked Pete how he'd feel about moving to Michigan with me. I said I needed to show him where there was some love, because I realized the reasons I left Michigan were because of a person or two, not because of the state, not because of God. And I loved it here. So we did. We came back. And some of the first people we met, we came here with plans to have a roof over our head, but that fell through. So we come back to Traverse City, and guess what? We're homeless. Something I never imagined I'd do in my life is be homeless. I looked down on people like that, you know? But there we were. And we're a little better on the drugs and alcohol. We weren't using the street drugs as much, and we weren't, we're still a mess. But we land in Jubilee House, which is a shelter for homeless people to hang out. And the first women we met had so much love pouring out of them, Christian love. I mean, if you talk about seeing Jesus through people and how he works, that did it. It did. He worked through those women. And one in particular who's here even told me, and she goes, Denise, I know there's a good person in there. You just got to let it out. You know, it was the first person that actually told me I was worthy. And, you know, I was decent. So, yeah, I kind of ran with that, you know, and I made a vow to God that if I got off these streets, I would definitely help out. I have a big enough mouth, I don't think I need it. So, yeah, we finally struggled and went from shelter to even across the street in those pines. And we finally got a home. We finally got our home. We've been there like 5 years. And we weren't drinking. I think we weren't using drugs. No hard drugs, no illegal drugs. No drinking. But still something's not right. Why aren't we happy? This is what we needed. This is what we wanted. Wanted a home. And I tell you, in the meantime, too, my daughter was terminally ill and had passed away at 37. This is more trauma that I didn't deal with, but yeah. So we end up in our apartment, and it just don't feel right. So we started going to churches in Traverse City. We tried out, I don't know, probably 6 churches, maybe more. And we just knew when we'd find the right one, we'd find that feeling, and we'd get back with God, and things would be good, and it did happen. we found this church. But I also found a program, it's Narcotics Anonymous, and that's what brought me back to God. Because in that program, you have to have a higher power, you have to have hope, you have to move forward, and only can do that with the Lord. I was not going to pick a rock to be my higher power. I wasn't going to pick the universe. I was going to pick God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit from the Bible. Because I did a lot of Bible reading. It's just I didn't understand nothing. I did not understand the new covenant. I thought I was still condemned, and they helped me to make friends, to learn how to be a friend, to have real friends, and they're here today. I also met a woman while volunteering at Jubilee House that I call my spiritual mentor. These two women were in my life teaching me the same thing about God. He loved me, he forgave me, and I could come to him, and I did have qualities. I have skills. So yeah, that's my story, and here I sit. So here I stand. I just have a good feeling in this church. I spend a lot of time in this church. I go to meetings 3 days a week. I cook breakfast on Monday. I try to make it to church. If not, I know now how to do it on TV. So yeah, our spiritual life, and it is ours because we've grown together. Everything I learn, I share with my husband. And we are not the same people we were 2 years ago. Not even close. My heart and my mind is so different. And I just love it. And this baptism, to me, I just want to show my friends and my church family and I don't have any real family that could be here, but these people that are here for me, they are my family. So yeah, with this baptism, I just want to have an outer appearance of how I feel inside. I want you all to know that I am changed, and when I come out of that water, I am clean, and I am worthwhile to God. I have a purpose. I didn't tell you too, I was flatlined dead a couple times from overdoses of drugs. But he brought me back, and that's part of where I started thinking maybe there is a reason for me to be. So yeah, I'm here, and I'm going to stay here.